So Nebraska, which is the new film by Alexander Payne, starring Bruce Dern, who won Best Actor award at Cannes, and so now in his 70s. I mean, it's fantastic to see Bruce Dern having this extraordinary role, a kind of sort of later period in his life, and I hope that actually we see much more of him in leading roles as a result of this, because Bruce Dern's had an extraordinary career, but at times he appears to sort of drop off the mainstream radar. He never stops working. He's working all the time, often playing secondary roles, but in this case, he's perfectly cast. The story is of this guy, Woody, who's living in Billings, Montana, who gets one of those things through the mail which says, "You've won $1 million. All you need to do is, get to our office." The office turns out to be in Nebraska, in Lincoln, Nebraska, which is like 700 odd miles away. And Woody is determined that he's going to get to Nebraska to go and pick it up. He said, "I'm not going to trust them in the mail." And everyone says, "No, but you haven't. It's a scam. The whole thing's a mail." He said, "No, I'm going to do it." And he starts wandering off. He keeps getting picked up by the police, wandering down the highway in this kind of bow-legged, splay-legged, because he looks like he's got very, very sort of dodgy hips. And he looks like he's sort of on the edge of senility. He has moments of being sort of lucid and moments of being, sort of timing out for a little while. And everyone's exasperated. His wife is completely fed up with him. She's clearly completely in love with him, but clearly completely fed up with him. And his sons are, finally, his son says to him, he has two sons. One of them says, "Look, I'll tell you, I'll do what I can to make this right." And they head off to go to Lincoln, Nebraska, on the basis that at least when they get there, he'll find out that there isn't a pot of gold at the end of this particular rainbow. However, en route, things happen. They have sort of bonding experiences or alienating experiences. They go back through Woody's old hometown of Hawthorne. And as they spend time together, Woody's past starts to become more and more apparent to his son. And they, through these kind of crotchety, edgy, bickering conversations, they start to find something resembling common ground. Here's a clip.
It's where you had your first drink?
Dad used to let me sip his beer.
So I guess you kept up that fine family tradition with Ross and me.
You liked it, as I recall.
I was like 6.
A sip of beer ain't gonna kill you when you're 6 years old. I thought you drank. Come on, have a beer with your old man. Be somebody.
I've been trying to give it up.
What for?
I mean, it was starting to... It just wasn't helping.
Now you're all right.
Excuse me.
Yeah,
Can I have a beer too, please?
you betcha.
I'm gonna drink with my dad.
And that's pretty much the tone of the whole film. It's people talk about it being shot in black and white. Actually, it's a digital shot. It's shot on the Arri Alexa, so they shot it digitally, and then they've.
What is that?
Well, you take a digital image, which of course, as Alexander Payne said when we were talking to him at the London Film Festival, digital image takes in everything, and then you grade it to black and white, and then what they've also done is that they've overlaid this artificial grain that makes it look like a grainy old monochrome movie, but in fact, this is one of the things you can do with digital. Now, they wanted to shoot in widescreen, black and white, and it turns out that the most efficient way of doing that now is to shoot in widescreen digital and then to deliberately degrade the image so that it looks like old black and white stock. I mean, that's kind of the point that we've got to. But it looks, it looks great. It's got that. I mean, the interesting thing is that the frame, which is the widescreen frame, on the one hand, you've got all the landscapes as they're driving, across down the interstates, and you get this sort of. There's a point in which they go to Mount Rushmore, and there's a point when, you're driving down there and all you can see is like some flatlands. And in that kind of black and white, that monochrome thing gives you that sense of vast openness, vast emptiness, this sort of Midwestern sprawl with fading towns. You get all that, but you also get...
Why does that work as opposed to colour?
Well, I mean, partly I think there is a nostalgic thing to it. I mean, people have talked about, it's good because it's not nostalgic, but I think it partly is a nostalgic thing. There is something about I mean, black and white photography has a certain aesthetic to it anyway, which is just different to colour photography. And for this particular story, which is about somebody who is later on in their life and who is sort of driving back through the memories of their past, there is something that works about black and white. That's not the only reason to use black and white. I mean, loads of directors use black and white in very, very interesting ways. But in this particular case, because of the way the film is graded, it looks like it's referring back to those films from the 60s and 70s. Obviously, it's looking back to Italian cinema and the neo-realists to some extent. But it's also just, it's something which fits the landscape, but it also oddly fits the interiors. I mean, there were moments in it that it reminded me of Stranger Than Paradise, when you have these sort of interior tableaus of people who are all sitting around having a conversation, but they're all looking at the television, and they're having these kind of conversations, but they're sideways, and all the conversations are about what did you come in, what were you driving, how long did it take, and when are you going? And the thing that I really like about the film is, firstly, I think Bruce Dern is brilliant, because Bruce Dern does what is actually, in many ways, a very non-Bruce Dern role. The thing that Bruce Dern made his name for was playing guys who were sort of on the edge of crazy, guys who were sort of slightly psychotic, who had this, real sort of electricity, and that was the thing that became his sort of defining, characteristic. And in this, the fact of the matter is that Woody is somebody whose mental facilities may be fading, but he's not crazy. What he is he's afflicted by melancholia. And there is a sense all the way through it that, although everyone knows that when he hasn't won the sweepstakes, that this piece of paper is bogus, although everyone knows that, the myth of what's happening starts to build around him. So as they stop in his local hometown, everyone says, "Oh God, you hear he's going to be a millionaire?" And suddenly these people start coming out of the woodwork and say, "Oh really? That's funny because he owes me money because I lent him money," and all these things start to come out. Although actually, on some level, everybody knows it's not true. And I think there is this suggestion, incidentally, that Woody himself knows that actually what he wants is something else, and he's looking. So it's no surprise to find out that the journey in the end is not financial. The journey in the end is emotional. That's what it's about. It's about somebody looking for something and finding it in this sort of slightly tangential way. And Dern is brilliant because he does that thing of absolutely getting the right mix of being, on the one hand, frail, on the other hand, determined, kind of crotchety but lovable. His wife is brilliant because she spends the whole time barking and shouting and being kind of incredibly racy and saying all the things that nobody else in the family will say. But obviously, say from a position of love, it's a very affectionate film. It's a film in which even the characters who are portrayed as dark and twisted, even the character, for example, who played by Stacey Keach, they're not caricatured dark and twisted. They're just people with everyday problems. And it is at its kind of root, it's a melancholic comedy. There are lots of laughs in it. I remember my favourite lines, it was in that clip when he says, "I'm trying to give it up. Why? Why would you want to do that? But why do you want to not drink?"
You use melancholic. I wonder if
a lot. Sorry.
Yes. No. I will. It's appropriate. You could also call it bleak. I mean, it's bleak.
Did you think it was bleak?
Well, it's a fairly bleak view of old age, didn't you think?
I didn't. I thought that it was a very affectionate view of old age. I thought that it had
a bleak way.
No, I thought it had a real sort of tenderness about that. He's all there, and he's all there in as much as all his past is there. And as his son spends time with him, he starts to find out things about his past that he didn't know. He starts to find out about previous relationships. He starts to find out about his war record. He starts to find out about the town in which he grew up. All these people keep referring to what his father was like before he was there. And his mother keeps saying, his mother who spends all this time saying, "Oh, he's driving me mad, you take him, why doesn't anybody look after me?" But as soon as anybody in any way impinges upon him, she says he was the kindest, nicest man, and his problem was he could never turn things down. So I think what it is I think it's a really great role for Bruce Dern. I think it's very well shot by Phelan Papamichael. I think that Alexander Payne has got that sort of sideways, pun intended, glance at human foibles. And I thought it was enchanting, actually. I really liked it.